They thrive on the pulse of your suffering, your agony, your moments of despair. These are their feast. Invisible forces extend unseen fingers deep within, extracting the essence of what animates you. This essence fuels your desires, powers your happiness, your vitality. When you're left hollow, when exhaustion clings to you with no clear source, it is because something hidden has siphoned away the current of your life. Each twinge of uncertainty, each solitary lament, each flicker of dread, these are collected, devoured in shadows. Chains, imperceptible yet unyielding, are wrapped around your soul. Bits of your spirit are stolen without consent, without compassion. You fight to hold what remains, yet the burden weighs heavier with each passing moment. Hear this clearly. You are not broken. You are not imagining it. You are a fierce spirit, ensnared within a lattice of darkness. An ancient, concealed wisdom explains why human torment flows so abundantly upon this world. It is not mere happenstance. It is not a cosmic mistake. There is an intentional harvest at play. This knowledge revolves around a subtle, vital force often called loosh. Loosh is not derived from scientific inquiry, nor is it sanctified by religious doctrine. Rather, it is a form of spiritual sustenance, a delicate, potent substance born from the experiences of living beings. Intense states of feeling, both luminous and dark, give rise to loosh. The sharp pang of sorrow, the sweet ache of love, the searing grip of terror, the wild storm of rage. These moments all generate this energy. Yet the richest and most coveted loosh emerges when deep pain is entwined with a stirring of spiritual awakening. The term loosh gained modern recognition through the works of Robert Monroe, a respected explorer of altered states of consciousness and journeys beyond the body. Within his writings, particularly in Far Journeys, Monroe depicted Earth as something akin to a great farm, a place where non-physical entities cultivate human emotions as a means of harvesting this precious energy. These entities do not appear in human form. They wear no robes, they claim no place in Scripture. They dwell within unseen realms, residing just beyond the threshold of ordinary perception. They are neither divine nor diabolical in the conventional sense. They are loosh harvesters, ancient, calculating intelligences that draw vitality from the living. But why do such beings exist? The deeper truth is unsettling. In realms beyond this physical plane, loosh functions as a kind of currency, a vital fuel. Just as crude oil powers engines in our world, loosh powers realities that lie beyond the veil of human senses. Within astral planes and elevated dimensions, myriad forms of life persist, many of which have lost the capacity to generate loosh themselves. Once, they were connected to the primal source of all light and energy, existing in harmony with the flow of creation. But a fracture occurred. They fell away from this source, and now they must feed to sustain themselves. Just as predators track the scent of prey, these beings are drawn to the fragrance of loosh. And Earth, with its tumultuous range of emotions, its teeming population, and its constant cycles of triumph and despair, is a boundless reservoir of loosh. Consider the mechanisms of this system. Wars ignite across continents. Poverty entrenches millions in suffering. Love turns to heartbreak. Trust is shattered by betrayal. Addictions consume lives. Trauma repeats across generations. Each of these human experiences produces streams of loosh, endlessly siphoned away through intricate, unseen networks. Understand, loosh itself is not evil. It is merely energy. But the machinery designed to extract it is not aligned with humanity's freedom. It is a system of ensnarement, weaving life into an endless loop of anguish and confusion. Recognizing the existence of loosh is the first act of reclaiming autonomy. When you grasp that your pain may be serving interests beyond your comprehension, interests that do not serve you, you begin the path to reclaiming your power. This choice is where liberation begins. Common law paints vampires as pale figures adorned in capes, lurking in forgotten castles. But the truest energy vampires do not crave blood. They feed on lush, the invisible sustenance of the spirit. These vampires appear in two distinct forms, physical and interdimensional. Some walk among us disguised as ordinary humans. Others exist far beyond the grasp of time and space. They breach our world through manipulation of emotion, spiritual entanglements, and subtle invasions of the psyche. Their greatest weapon is invisibility. The first type is human. Many such individuals remain unaware of their role as energy parasites. They drain the vitality of others through emotional entanglement, constant drama, or manufactured distress, without fully understanding what they are doing. These individuals are not inherently malevolent. Often, they are deeply wounded souls who, perhaps as children, learned that provoking emotional responses in others was the only means of feeling alive. They sow confusion, stoke arguments, and thrive on the reactions they elicit. And yet, beneath their behavior lies an insatiable hunger that can never be fully appeased. Those who spend time with such individuals frequently report feeling depleted, as if their inner reservoir of energy has been drained. But beyond these human manifestations lies something far more insidious. Interdimensional entities, ageless, unseen intelligences, employ human vampires as unwitting instruments. These beings lack visible form, yet their presence is undeniable to those attuned to subtle energies. They whisper thoughts into vulnerable minds, nudge individuals toward conflict, and even momentarily overshadow human consciousness to create chaos. Their motive is singular. They require loosh to sustain themselves. They are parasites of awareness, and Earth is their chosen feeding ground. Such beings have no interest in love, truth, or harmony. In fact, when an individual begins to ascend spiritually, to cultivate inner peace, these forces frequently intervene. They may orchestrate the arrival of a human vampire into that person's life, or engineer a series of bewildering, disruptive events designed to destabilize the soul. They favor those who are easily provoked, emotionally volatile, and spiritually adrift, for such individuals generate the richest loosh. This explains why those embarking on spiritual growth often encounter heightened adversity. These incidents are not arbitrary. They are deliberate harvest operations. One of the most effective techniques employed by these vampires is the loosh loop. It commences with an emotional trigger: rejection, betrayal, humiliation. The vampire, whether human or not, instigates this event, then steps aside, allowing the individual to spiral into reactivity. As the person mentally revisits the incident, speaks of it, and sinks deeper into the associated emotions, they continue to generate loosh. The vampire feeds upon this energy, but is never sated. In time, they create another trigger. The cycle continues. Tragically, many live entire lives trapped within such loops, unaware that their life force is being continuously drained. Another insidious tactic is the emotional echo. Here, the vampire mirrors the target's emotions in a distorted manner. Express sorrow, and they embody greater sorrow. Show anger, and they amplify the rage. This reflection intensifies emotional states and fosters profound confusion. The victim begins to question the authenticity of their own feelings, losing trust in their inner compass. Over time, this destabilization enhances loosh production, rendering the individual more vulnerable. A particularly pernicious strategy is the creation of a false bond. The vampire may cultivate a relationship that initially feels profound, a soulmate connection, a mentorship, or a spiritual guide dynamic. At first, this bond seems empowering, even transformative, But gradually, it becomes suffocating. The vampire induces guilt, fosters dependence, and cultivates anxiety. The victim feels incapable of severing the relationship without causing harm, either to themselves or to the vampire. This emotional entrapment facilitates a steady extraction of loosh over months or even years. The most alarming aspect of this phenomenon is that energy vampires do not feed solely on negative emotions. Admiration and love, when not grounded in authenticity, can also serve as sustenance. This dynamic is particularly prevalent in spiritual communities. Charismatic but false teachers or influencers draw the emotional energy of their followers. They speak of unity, enlightenment, and compassion, yet behind the facade they drain their audience's loosh. They cultivate dependency, suppress critical thinking, and maintain a veneer of holiness while operating as sophisticated energy parasites. Entire organizations, both overt and concealed, are structured around the extraction of loosh. Through media, entertainment, political discourse, and religious manipulation, they engineer environments of fear, division, and emotional volatility. The resulting turbulence produces vast quantities of loosh, channeled toward entities operating beyond the public eye. These structures are not mere conspiracy. They represent an ancient apparatus of spiritual farming. Recognizing how loosh is extracted is only the beginning. The next crucial understanding is this. When you identify an energy vampire, much of their influence diminishes. Their principal weapon is your ignorance. Once you observe them consciously, monitor their behavior, and refuse to supply them with your energy, the energetic cords connecting you begin to unravel. They may retaliate. Their manipulations may intensify temporarily, but if you maintain centered awareness, their hold will eventually break. This marks the first true step toward reclaiming the sovereignty of your soul. The most formidable of these vampires, particularly those operating from dimensions beyond physical space, move with a chilling quiet. They do not spark immediate panic or obvious disruption. Instead, they employ a far more sinister approach: gradual, spiritual erosion. By the time one becomes aware that something is amiss, much of their inner vitality has already been siphoned away. These entities and their subtle systems do not always rely on overt trauma or outright conflict. Rather, they exploit recurring patterns, seize upon brief moments, and infiltrate through unnoticed psychic vulnerabilities. Their methods are crafted with precision to evade conscious detection. This is why it becomes essential to explore the rarely discussed, often dismissed signals that suggest one is being drained. These indicators are not always clear. More often than not, they are rationalized, explained away, or misinterpreted as spiritual or psychological anomalies. Yet they are the footprints of invisible predators, clues that reveal the presence of those who harvest the essence of human life. One of the more peculiar and telling experiences is known as the slippage of perceived time. Imagine finding yourself in a conversation, perhaps seemingly benign, only to later realize that an unusual amount of time has passed, or that your memory of what transpired is inexplicably fragmented. It may feel as though minutes stretched into hours, or entire segments of time simply vanished. This is not simple forgetfulness or distraction. It is often a sign that your conscious awareness was partially displaced, allowing for the extraction of your vital energy without resistance. During these episodes, attention is subtly hijacked, and memory suppression is employed to prevent the conscious mind from recognizing the intrusion. Another deeply unsettling phenomenon manifests as a compulsive drive to give, whether that be time, affection, energy, or resources, to a specific individual. This urge arises without logical cause, often accompanied by anxiety if one attempts to resist or guilt if one tries to withdraw. Though it may masquerade as generosity or affection, beneath the surface lies something unnatural. In such cases, an energetic tether or cord has often been affixed to the heart or solar plexus. This cord acts as an unseen siphon, and the compulsion to give is a subconscious attempt to satisfy the resulting energetic imbalance. In reality, this only feeds the drain further. Sleep, the sanctuary where the soul often seeks restoration, is another domain vulnerable to these predators. Many who are targeted experience abrupt awakenings in the early morning hours, particularly between 3 and 4. They may awaken disoriented, physically fatigued, or emotionally raw, without any clear memory of their dreams. Some awaken with sensations of pressure on the head or chest. These occurrences are not simply nightmares. Rather, they often mark moments when the soul is partially extracted from the body during sleep, granting these entities access to the deepest wells of unconscious emotion. Lush harvested during such states is profoundly potent, drawn from the purest currents of the psyche. Speech, a powerful instrument of expression and will, can also be compromised. Victims often report episodes where, in the presence of certain individuals or following particular experiences, they find themselves struggling to articulate thoughts. Words become tangled or elusive. The voice feels disconnected from intention. This phenomenon is not mere nervousness. It signifies a targeted suppression of the throat energy center, aimed at weakening the individual's ability to assert truth. When speech falters, the individual becomes more passive, more easily influenced, and thus more susceptible to further energetic extraction. Even spiritual practices, those rituals and moments meant to reconnect us with the sacred, can become casualties of this unseen warfare. In some cases, a profound and inexplicable disinterest in meditation, prayer, sacred music, or other spiritual activities arises. What once nourished the soul now feels devoid of meaning, perhaps even repellent. This is not a crisis of faith. It is the aftermath of lush depletion. The spiritual centers of the individual have been over-harvested, leaving the energetic field around the soul barren and the person spiritually anemic. Visual perception may also subtly shift. Victims might begin to notice that their environment appears muted, colors dull, as though life itself has faded. This is not a defect of vision, but a frequency distortion. When the soul is being drained, its resonance with the full vibrational spectrum diminishes. As a result, the world appears gray, lifeless, even when surrounded by natural beauty. This perceptual change is one of the earliest visual markers of energetic harvesting. In the aftermath of certain interactions, a high-pitched ringing in the ears may occur, often lasting from a few seconds to several minutes. This phenomenon, known as neural buzzing, is not caused by external sound. It reflects interference within the energetic field, a residual effect of breach and recalibration. Such buzzing frequently follows encounters with advanced energy vampires, those capable of initiating extraction through language, imagery, or even sustained eye contact. Perhaps one of the most disorienting experiences is that of synthetic familiarity. Victims may encounter situations, conversations, or emotions that feel uncannily familiar, as though they have happened before, though no such prior occurrence exists. This is not benign déjà vu. Rather, it results from the implantation of energetic devices designed to generate predictable emotional loops. These implants recreate familiar sensations to foster emotional responses that can be easily harvested. The sense of familiarity is artificially induced, crafted solely for the efficient extraction of lush. Finally, there is the phenomenon of temporal dilation within emotional states. Certain interactions may seem to unnaturally elongate time, trapping the individual in an endless moment of discomfort or distress. While caught within this perceptual distortion, the soul's energy is partially suspended, meticulously analyzed and drawn upon. When the interaction concludes, time seems to resume its normal flow, but the individual is left hollowed, fatigued, and emotionally disoriented. Such methods are both ancient and refined, honed over countless cycles of human experience. These predators operate not out of malice but necessity. Having severed their connection to the original source of life, they have become dependent upon the energies of others. But understanding this dynamic is the first step toward liberation. The act of seeing, truly seeing these patterns, diminishes their hold. When awareness is brought to the mechanisms of control and extraction, the victim begins to reclaim their agency. Yet one must be prepared for resistance. When the flow of lush is interrupted, these entities often retaliate, escalating their tactics in an effort to re-establish control. They may intensify emotional triggers, manipulate dreams more aggressively, or attempt to foster dependence through deeper emotional hooks. However, with steadfast awareness and a refusal to engage in the emotional cycles they engineer, their grip inevitably weakens. It is important to remember that not every challenging emotional experience is the result of lush harvesting. Life, in its complexity, naturally includes moments of pain and struggle, but when patterns of depletion, confusion, and erosion recur with uncanny precision, when relationships drain rather than nourish, when time and perception warp inexplicably, these may be the telltale signs of deeper interference. To reclaim sovereignty over one's energy requires more than intellectual understanding. It demands conscious vigilance, emotional discipline, and a commitment to inner clarity. Cultivating practices that restore and fortify the energy field, meditation, breathwork, connection to nature, can aid immensely. Equally vital is the practice of discernment, learning to recognize relationships, environments, and behaviors that subtly sap vitality. One of the most empowering realizations is that lush extraction thrives on unawareness. The more conscious one becomes of these dynamics, the less effective they become. Energy that is guarded with intention, that is not allowed to flow freely into loops of fear, guilt, or ungrounded devotion, is far more difficult to harvest. The key is not to resist emotion itself, but to navigate it with awareness, refusing to become ensnared in cycles that serve external agendas. Ultimately, the goal of those who harvest lush is not simply to feed, but to maintain a system of entrapment. A humanity perpetually ensnared in cycles of suffering, division, and dependency is a humanity that produces endless sustenance. But as individuals awaken to this reality, as they reclaim the sacred stewardship of their own life force, the very foundation of this system begins to erode. Every act of conscious awareness, every refusal to participate in engineered drama, every moment of authentic inner peace chips away at the architecture of energetic farming. In this way, each person who awakens contributes not only to their own liberation, but to the collective unraveling of an ancient web of control. This is the deeper path of spiritual sovereignty, not a path free from challenge, but one illuminated by clarity, courage, and unwavering awareness. As the layers of this unseen reality unfold, it becomes more apparent that this is not a battle of brute force, nor a fight waged with weapons and shields. It is a war of subtle influence, waged on the fields of perception, emotion, and belief. The more humanity is kept unaware of the existence of these forces, the more freely they feed. The deeper the ignorance, the wider the portals through which life force is drawn. But with knowledge comes the possibility of resistance. The act of perceiving this ancient dynamic begins to weaken its grip. Awareness itself generates a frequency that disrupts the ease with which these entities operate. They thrive in shadows, in the blind spots of human consciousness. When those blind spots are illuminated, their avenues of approach narrow, and while the path toward full liberation is neither short nor simple, each step in conscious reclamation restores a measure of vitality that was once lost. There are practical aspects to this path of reclamation. First and foremost is the cultivation of emotional sovereignty. These forces do not simply siphon raw energy. They rely on emotional volatility, on unprocessed wounds, on unresolved traumas that leave individuals vulnerable to manipulation. Learning to sit with one's emotions without being consumed by them is a foundational skill. Emotions themselves are not the enemy. Indeed, they are part of the rich tapestry of human experience. But when emotions control the individual, when they loop endlessly without conscious processing, they become ripe for harvesting. Mindfulness practices, though often dismissed as simplistic, can become powerful tools for interrupting these loops. The simple act of observing one's thoughts and feelings with detachment, of noticing the rise of anger or sorrow without being pulled into its vortex, can deprive harvesters of their most fertile fuel. Breathwork, too, serves as a potent means of anchoring awareness within the body, creating a space where reaction gives way to conscious choice. Equally important is the practice of energetic hygiene. Just as one tends to the cleanliness of the physical body, the energetic field requires care and maintenance. Exposure to toxic environments, whether physical spaces charged with conflict, media saturated with fear, or relationships steeped in manipulation, leaves residue upon the subtle body. Without regular cleansing, this residue accumulates, weakening natural defenses and leaving the soul more permeable to external influence. Techniques for cleansing vary across traditions. Some find solace in immersion in nature, allowing the frequencies of the earth to realign and purify the field. Others employ ritual baths, visualization, sound healing, or energy work. The method matters less than the intention and consistency with which it is applied. The goal is to clear what has been imposed and restore the field to a state of integrity. Boundaries, too, are essential. Not all who drain energy do so with malicious intent. Many are unconscious in their behavior, operating from wounds they have yet to heal. But the impact is the same. Learning to recognize the subtle cues of energetic depletion, feeling inexplicably tired around certain people, experiencing sudden mood shifts in specific environments, noticing repeated patterns of guilt or obligation, is key to identifying relationships and situations that require stronger boundaries. Setting these boundaries need not involve confrontation. Often, it is an internal stance, a silent affirmation of one's right to retain their life force. It may involve limiting contact, changing the nature of interactions, or simply holding a clear intention of energetic self-sovereignty. In cases where the drain is more severe or persistent, more overt action may be required, ending relationships, leaving environments, or seeking support to reinforce one's field. And yet, perhaps the most profound shift lies in the transformation of one's relationship to fear. For fear is the master key to the entire harvesting system. It is the gateway emotion through which all others are manipulated. When fear governs perception, choice narrows, awareness contracts, and susceptibility increases. Entire structures of societal control are built upon this principle, weaving fear into the fabric of daily life through constant narratives of threat, division, and insufficiency. Transcending fear does not mean denying its presence. It means meeting it with the light of understanding, seeing through its distortions, and choosing to act from a place of inner clarity rather than conditioned reaction. Each moment in which one refuses to be driven by fear is a moment in which the harvesting system loses a foothold. Courage, in this context, is not the absence of fear, but the mastery of it, the willingness to move forward with awareness despite its presence. As awareness deepens, so too does discernment. One begins to perceive the many faces of the harvesting system, not only in personal interactions, but in the broader currents of collective experience. It becomes easier to recognize the manufactured nature of many societal crises, the intentional engineering of emotional volatility through media, politics, and culture. This is not to suggest that all such events are fabricated, but that many are amplified and manipulated to serve unseen agendas. In recognizing this, one gains the power to disengage, to choose where and how one invests attention and energy, to consume information consciously rather than passively absorbing narratives designed to trigger reactive states. Attention, after all, is the currency of consciousness. Where it flows, energy follows. Reclaiming agency over attention is one of the most effective ways to starve the harvesting apparatus. There is also a deeper, more esoteric layer to this path. As one cultivates inner clarity and energetic integrity, a natural resonance with higher frequencies begins to emerge. This is not about chasing bliss or spiritual highs, but about aligning with the intrinsic order of life, what some traditions call the Tao, the divine flow, or simply source. In this state of alignment, the soul radiates a quality of coherence that is inhospitable to parasitic forces. Such alignment is not a static achievement, but a dynamic practice. It requires ongoing commitment, the willingness to continually refine perception, release distortions, and embody greater authenticity. The more fully one embodies their true nature, the less susceptible they become to manipulation. For the harvesting system preys upon fragmentation, upon the disconnect between one's essence and one's lived experience. Wholeness is its antidote. Community can also play a vital role in this journey. Isolation breeds vulnerability. Shared awareness strengthens resilience. Connecting with others who understand these dynamics, not from a place of fear or paranoia, but from a commitment to collective empowerment, can provide both practical support and energetic reinforcement. Together, individuals can co-create spaces of high resonance where life force is honored, not exploited. At the heart of this path lies a profound choice: to live as an unwitting battery for forces that do not serve life, or to reclaim the birthright of conscious co-creation with the greater intelligence that animates the cosmos. The former path requires nothing but unconsciousness. The latter demands everything: a willingness to face uncomfortable truths, to dismantle internal distortions, to walk with integrity even when the tide of consensus reality pulls in another direction. But with this choice comes a reward beyond measure: the return of one's life force to its rightful steward, the gradual restoration of vitality, clarity, and authentic joy, the deepening of connection with the sacred, and ultimately, the realization that one's existence is not a mere accident of biology, but a luminous thread within the vast tapestry of conscious evolution. In the end, the harvesting system persists only because it remains unseen. Its greatest vulnerability is the awakening of those it feeds upon. For when enough individuals choose awareness over ignorance, authenticity over conditioning, sovereignty over subjugation, the entire architecture of energetic exploitation begins to crumble. Each act of conscious presence, each moment of reclaimed attention, each refusal to be driven by fear, sends ripples through the unseen realms. It weakens the hold of those who have long fed in secret. It signals the emergence of a humanity no longer willing to serve as prey. And though the path ahead may still wind through shadows, it is illuminated from within by the inextinguishable light of awakened spirit. A light that, once kindled, cannot be harvested, only expanded. So to those who walk this path, remember, you are not alone. Each step you take toward reclaiming your sovereignty strengthens the field for all. each choice for clarity over confusion, for love over manipulation, for truth over distortion, tears another thread from the web of enslavement. In this shared journey, the true power lies not in resistance alone, but in the radiant presence of souls who remember who they are, and who choose again and again to stand as beacons of unharvestable light in a world long shrouded by unseen hands.